again, everybody, and welcome to the 2023 Bison Sports Network Football Preview Show. I'm Todd Miller, as always, joined by the head Bison himself, head coach Chris Jensen. Coach, long time no see. A lot of changes on campus that we're going to talk about as far as the football program is concerned leading up to next week's season opener. But quickly, in a nutshell, do you feel much better where this program was than this time a year ago?
I do. You know, this is the first time we've ever had more new players than returners from last spring. But I believe the returners did the work they needed to do through the spring. Very pleased with how they approached everything that we asked them to do, and I think they've led well. Even with all the new players on campus, they've led well through preseason. Very pleased with how the progress we made.
There's a lot of reasons that what happened last year happened. It's in the background, but you've used that as a building block. You told me before the season was over, look, this can't happen again. I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to look inward. I'm going to look in the mirror. I'm going to evaluate this program from top to bottom. How many different changes did you have to make? And I think a lot of that had to do with strength and conditioning.
It did. I felt like, a big reason for some of the difficulties we faced last year was a leadership issue, and it starts with me. And so I'm not pointing the finger at anybody else. And so I had to make a lot of changes. I had to just reevaluate everything that we did in the program. We did make a change in the strength and conditioning, and I took that under my belt, and we had a great spring through that. I feel like the players really got stronger and worked harder than they ever have. It's probably since 2014, to be honest. The last time I was in charge of the conditioning program in the spring. And so very pleased with how they did that. But we also added a classroom component to teach leadership to not just a small group of players, but everybody. And the things that are being a responsible athlete and being an accountable athlete. And so we did that, and the players endured that. They got into small groups and discussed some of the things that we were talking about. And I feel like they grew closer together through the things that we asked them to do. And then we've carried that into preseason, and they've built on that as well, and they've really led well, those players that were here last spring.
Again, Chris, nobody wants to have to go through what you went through last year, but sometimes it's good to just kind of refresh and step back, hit the refresh button, and kind of start all over and change the way you've approached things after a decade.
Right. You can't worry about what has happened in the past, and I wouldn't want to go through that again. But all you can do is make changes and move forward and try to focus on being your best. And even our core expectations and values were evaluated and simplified so that everybody could expect the same from everybody in the program.
So many new kids on campus. I think you started early August, 131 kids. About half of those 70 were brand new. Mm-hmm. Amongst the returning guys, have you noticed a difference in their mentality and the way they approach a leadership role?
Oh, yeah. And I think they've taken it up a notch because we've expected more of them, and they've really excelled in that role, and I feel like they've done a great job at leading well.
All right, let's begin our preview, breaking down the offense. First of all, it all starts with the quarterback, Aiden Thompson. He's not a stranger, but he's a newcomer almost. I mean, he played a game and a half last year. Very talented young man. I know you have to be excited to see him showcase for a full year, hopefully, his full skill set.
Yeah, we're very excited. Unfortunately, Aiden had a great game against Harding last year and was injured, a season-ending injury in that game. But we're excited. He's had a great spring, and the preseason has been phenomenal for him as well. And so we're real excited about what he's going to be able to do on the game field.
The wide receiver core is going to look a little different. You don't have a Key, you don't have a Josh Cornell, but you got a guy named Mike Marshall. He's really very good, and he's a guy that you can kind of build your aerial attack around, isn't he?
Right. Yeah, he's there's a lot of positions that are up for grabs in that core right there, but Michael is a returning starter, and he is one that is already on the watch list for the NFL. If we have NFL scouts on our campus, it's going to be for Michael this year, and so they've already started reaching out and plan to come watch him, and so we're very excited about the potential he has.
Last year you struggled to consistently run the football. You feel better less than a week away from the opener about how you're going to be able to attack the opposing defenses on the ground? I do.
I mean, that's been a huge emphasis from last November when we had our coaches meeting. That was one of the things I laid out for our staff, is that we are going to run the ball better. And that's going to be an emphasis of our program. We're going to run the ball better. We're going to stop the run. And I did an evaluation. I was sitting there watching Northwest Missouri State play in the playoffs when they were on TV one time, and I just started questioning myself, how many offensive linemen do they have on their roster? So I looked it up. I I counted 25 offensive linemen on their roster, and we were sitting with maybe 16 to 17 last year. And so I called Coach Eaton. I said, we've got to increase this number. We've got to have, if we're gonna get to that level, then we've got to have more offensive line. We've got to put an emphasis on the guys that we're getting, that we're bringing in, and increase our numbers there. And so we really put a focus on that.
Obviously, you could never have too much of anybody at one position. We found that out last year. But competition from week to week really helps, doesn't it?
Competition and depth, because we're going to have injuries at this level, so we've got to have the depth.
How do you feel about the offensive line? I mean, you lost some stalwarts that have been there for 4 years, but you have a nice mix of returning guys coming back as well.
We do. We've got a lot of returning starters, and we've got games played all across the board. Every one of them has played in games, and so that's a credit to Coach Gothard, and even allowing twos to get in there in game in significant situations in the game as they're developing, and so we have game experience all across the board.
I know last year before the season was over, one of the things you started talking about was on the defensive front, and it kind of bled into the conversation about I'm going to redo the way we do strength and conditioning here. You said two things: we've got to be stronger and we've got to be more physical up front. Do you feel like you have addressed that?
I believe we have. We set a goal, and it was an aggressive goal last spring, to increase our squat max per player by 100 pounds. And that was an aggressive goal, and we achieved it. And so very, very impressed with the way that those players worked, and I think you'll see it show itself on the field.
How does the depth up front look? Because that at times last year was an issue.
Yeah, it's better this year. I think a lot of the young guys that we brought in are going to help add to that depth, and we had some guys that we didn't want to quite burn that red shirt at the end of the year last year that will help us as well.
Okay, let's talk about the linebacking core. Talking to some people on campus, they said this has a chance to be maybe as good a linebacking core as we've had around. I mean, you're very, very good behind the line of scrimmage.
We are. Jake Landers has been solid for us since he's been here, and his name's called this year. But we've also got somebody that we brought in just at the end of the summer that played at Southeastern as an all-conference player at Southeastern, and he has joined the Bison this year, and so we're looking forward to his performance on the field as well. And then we've got Braden Johnson, who's young but has a lot of tools.
We only got to see Braden in spurts last year. I know you guys are really excited when you signed him out of Ringling, a small school player here with the Sooner State. How has he progressed from the end of last year in November to where we are now?
Well, he's really progressed. He brought in, even as a true freshman, he brought in size, speed, and strength. And so he actually played a number of positions last year, played linebacker, played defensive line, trying to find the best fit for him. He's settled in at linebacker right now, and he's really excelled in that area.
Where we stand in the back end, I mean, needed to get more athletic there. Do you feel like you did that?
With Brandon Spencer coming back, very excited about him. He's healthy and ready to go. And, we've got some other guys back there that are really going to help. TK has moved from corner into safety, and I think he's going to have a chance to make a contribution. A couple new corners. Chase obviously is back at corner and is an imposing figure over there just because of his height, his size, and his athletic ability. But then we've got some other guys that are still battling for the other corner spot as well.
White Bear last year was really one of the pleasant surprises in what was a forgettable season. Don't you agree?
Oh yes, I would say so.
All right, let's overall defensively. Is this have a chance to be as good a defensive unit as you've had in a 3 years?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I would say in the last 5 or 6 years, probably the best unit that we have a potential to be.
All right, special teams. Gigi was the kicker last year. Had been here a couple of years. He decided to move on. I know you feel good about the specialist that you brought in.
We did. Coach Milo, unfortunately, has taken a job elsewhere outside of football. But before he did, he set us up with 4 kickers. And so we've got 4 young kickers that have really done a good job battling for that position. We're excited about the potential. I feel like all 4 of them have the potential to go out there and help us in that phase.
One of the things you've been really fortunate since you built this program is you've had continuity in the coaching staff. I know losing Jason was a big setback, but you've replaced him. How do you feel about your coaching staff entering 2023?
Very good. They've actually gelled really well and have really worked hard. And, the relationship up and down the hall is as good as it's ever been. Very excited. Obviously brought Tyler Roberts in, who has coordinating experience in junior college in California. to coach outside linebackers, but very excited to hire Philip Spess. Philip was actually here when we started the whole thing. He came in 2012, and he had to practice when he didn't get to play, and so he's seen how much this program has transformed since then. But he can tell stories about the old days.
The coaching staff as a whole, how did you address them at the end of last season? Because you said the inward perspective started with you, but I'm sure it went down the line, office to office, like, guys, this is what we need to improve on. This is what I expect for you going forward.
There were some things I set out as far as running the ball better and things like that. But for me, it was the expectations and to a man, every one of the coaches, maintaining those expectations with our players, trying to simplify those so everybody was on the same page and had an easy way to call somebody out if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so
Gabe Elisario's back for a second year, really his first full calendar year here at Oklahoma Baptist. I'm going to turn the page back about defense for a moment. How much different what type of advantage does that give you going into the opener as opposed to last year? Familiar faces in the same scheme.
Well, he's had an opportunity to build relationships now. Last spring, not this past spring, but the spring before when he came in during spring ball. And so he hit the ground running. He was coaching the guys. We get to the end of spring ball, semester's over with, the players go home for summer, and then they come back and we're hitting the ground running again in the fall. And so he really didn't have an opportunity to build relationships with those defensive players, and it had an impact throughout the course of the season. But I've seen him do that. He's been intentional about building relationships with players, not only within the football realm, but also outside of the sport. And I think it's going to pay dividends.
How excited about this season are you? Because just sitting here talking to you and looking at you, it feels like you are rejuvenated after last year. But you have so many young guys that have potential that you're going to finally see perhaps that potential reach its point during the course of the season this year.
Yeah, the potential is phenomenal, and that is exciting. But my focus on my purpose is clarified, and so that's what I wake up every day with. And every day's a new day, and I have a chance to fulfill my purpose and do what I'm called to do.
I only have 5 home games this year, 1 right off of the bat. In fact, 3 of the first 5 games are here in Shawnee. It's really going to be important for this young team to hold serve at home, isn't it?
It is. It'll be really important, and I think we have a chance to go out there and have a good showing.
All right, I'm ready to get after it. I know you guys are. We'll see you next Thursday night.
All right, thanks.
That's Bison head football coach Chris Jensen. Thanks for tuning in for this edition of the Bison Sports Network 2020 or 2023 football preview show. I'm Todd Miller. So long, everybody.